Hi everyone. Okay, so just as we're all joining here, guys, you'll be muted immediately as you join, just so that you'll only be able to hear myself and Yao as we start the Q&A for today. But thank you all for joining in. Numbers are kind of flying up at the moment, so I'll wait for a couple of minutes until we have everybody in. Probably just another 1 or 2 more minutes, and we'll get going. But thanks for joining us. I can see Yao up here on the screen. I'll just give you the power of speech. Actually, you should be able to. Maybe. Where are you?
Hey Adrian, how are you?
Yeah, you can. Can you hear me right?
Yeah, all good.
I can't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Perfect, got you.
All right.
You're at a tournament. That's brilliant.
The TOC.
Still at the team. Amazing. Right, I'll just have to mute the odd person as they come in, but they're looking good. Okay, unmute. Here we go. Can you hear me again, Yao?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just had a master mute to get everybody quiet, and then we're all good. I'm going to pin you as the spotlight as well, so we see you, which would be great. Yeah, looking good. Okay, so I think we'll start chatting. And as people join, it's fine, they can kind of pick it up. But first of all, thanks a lot. Thanks so much for taking the time out to talk to us all and let us know obviously how you're getting on, but also be really nice to dive into a bit about your squash history. And as you saw from the kind of theme about this transition really from junior to pro, which you've relatively recently made, but we'll kind of come into that. But first of all, how are you doing? How are things in Malaysia? How are you coping with this strange time?
All right, thank you. We've been under like a lockdown since mid of March, and the last time I played squash was against Mossad at Canary Wharf actually.
Right, yeah.
I was like, just had a tough match against Mossad, traveled all the way 13 hours back to Malaysia, and I was like, I'm gonna take a few days off. Took the weekend off, want to go back training on Monday, and then the government launched the lockdown, and then I was just stuck since then. I haven't played squash ever since. But I've been doing a lot of work at home, just keeping myself fit, doing quite a lot of the movement stuff that you've taught.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty good since.
Good. And how are you sort of finding it mentally? Because one of the toughest things for a lot of people under these circumstances.
Yeah, it is. I think it's the longest I've been away from the squash court, and been doing a lot of yoga to cope with it in a way that I can spend 45 minutes to an hour just stretching, focusing on my breath, and then just clearing my mind, and overall not worrying too much about stuff that we can't control, just doing the best that we can, which is now just try and stay at home as much as possible and try and stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it's a simple bit of advice, but so important about focusing really what you can control during this time. Yeah, I mean, that's a great lesson for any period of life, isn't it? Even when you're playing on the tour as well, it's the same. You can't control those rankings.
The referees.
The referees, exactly. So, I think we can definitely use this time as an opportunity to kind of develop all sorts of things in ourselves, which perhaps we wouldn't be forced to maybe in a normal circumstances. But yeah, so perhaps if we could just sort of start just briefly from the beginning, really, for you, because I'm sure there's going to be quite a few juniors on this call, coaches, parents, and people who, really relate to this sort of junior to senior transition, either that some have already made it or are aspiring to that. When did sort of squash start for you? What age did you begin playing?
I started when I was 7. My dad's a social squash player as well, but At first, it was just about trying to keep myself healthy, me and my brother. So we would just take us on weekends, go to a local squash. Malaysia, we don't really have a good squash club scene. We
Okay.
just we have like states and we have associations in those states. So it's like a state-run program, and we just join every weekend. So
Right.
it was more for health purposes.
Okay.
But after a year, I just started joining tournaments in Malaysia, and then yeah, been playing a lot of tournaments since then. And at 9 years old, I went for my first international junior tournament at Hong Kong, and
Yeah.
that's where everything started, basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was going to ask you actually, was there a sort of an age or a time when you thought, yeah, I'm actually pretty good at this and I want to take it a bit more seriously? Would it be
Actually, after the first session I had with a coach, he had me use like one of those smaller frame rackets
yeah.
for juniors. And after one session, he came up and told my dad that next session I have to use a proper racket because he felt like I could hit the ball pretty decent.
Nice. Yeah.
And then I fell in love with squash basically.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So you also had some natural ability there, clearly, which we can definitely see when you're on the
Yeah.
court. Nice. And then so obviously you progressed through the juniors well. You then as you say, by 9 you were kind of competing in some of the bigger
Yeah.
events in Malaysia, and obviously you had a lot of success there. And then as far as your junior career is concerned, I'm guessing that the world junior title would be the kind of pinnacle. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a lot of build up for that personally.
Right.
It was just years and years of preparation for that.
Mm,
But obviously every year there's British Junior every year, but World Juniors is major because it's kind of um you can only do it up to 19.
mm,
And my birthday was in January, so which means by the time I turned 19, almost I'm done that year. So I had to win it when I was 18.
yeah.
So there was a lot of build up for that, and it's definitely pretty intense 6 to 1 year as
Mm,
far as I can remember.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because so it was sort of how far in advance were you aspiring to to try and win that title? Was it a dream from a young age, or was it something that you started to see within reach and then aim for?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of my targets, even from when I was really young, to be world champion, basically. Even starting from juniors first. But I remember back then, way younger. I think I was 10 or 11, and I've heard about British juniors, and it was a big thing. Um, and I actually took a paper. I drew a picture of me, myself with a trophy, right? And I wrote there British under 13 champion, and I stuck it in front of my door. So every morning when I wake up and I get out from my room, I would look at a picture and it just reminds me every day.
Wow.
I'm not sure how much it really affected me, but I'm sure subconsciously it kind of helped me because it was reminding me every time what I wanted.
I'm sure.
And the British Junior Opens were stepping stones to the World Juniors. So 13th, 15th, 17th,
Yeah.
building up to 19th.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I heard I think it might have been Novak Djokovic that made like a kind of paper model of the Wimbledon trophy. I think it was Djokovic. I
Mm.
heard somewhere. Probably similar thought
Yeah,
process that he had there of that dream of it. And yeah, I think that's a great story. But obviously shows you had real strong aspirations from a young
mm.
age. You were dreaming big, which has proven to be a successful mindset for you, definitely so far. So as far as your sort of preparation for that title, just while we're still in your sort of junior phase here, what what can you remember? What were the sort of main things you felt that you needed to add to your game or to develop to have the ability to win that, or was it a sort of gradual process?
Um, I'd say it's more of a gradual process as well, with keeping in mind what you're always working on. But the biggest difference I felt definitely was going out for PSA tournaments when I was 16. That was the major change that I could feel
Right.
straight away. Playing juniors, you're playing kids around your same age. You get obviously players that are bigger size, but they're still the same age as you, so they can't get as big as some of those guys. on tour. So when I was 16, I left for like Australian tours. I used to do 3 tournaments back to back. That's where I learned a lot. I was losing first round, second round, and then I stayed back to watch a lot of the matches. I was trying to learn as much as possible, look back at what happened against the bigger guys and the older guys, and that's where I learned a lot. And then I felt like from there on, when I think at 16, 17, I was focusing a lot on on PSA,
Mm.
but the main target was still at the end of the year or like World Juniors. So it's kind of like building up to British Juniors or World Juniors. But um, throughout the year, I've always been focused on the PSA tour.
Mm. I think that's a great piece of information and advice there, really, because actually it's definitely something which, well, it's kind of partly the topic of this discussion, but something to really be mindful of when juniors are developing into that sort of teenage phase. They're getting stronger and they potentially are ready for senior competition. It's easy to either not partake in that or avoid it, or perhaps just play all the junior stuff because you're chasing a ranking or whatever. But as you say there, you're going to get the best of both worlds there. You're getting this taste of the PSA tour, with your aspirations to go beyond junior squash already, but at the same time it's just making you such a much better junior, having been
Yeah.
exposed to that senior squash.
Also at the same time, I think it's I've always had a mindset of wanting to be better in a way. Even if I remember I won the 17th of British Juniors, but I didn't waste too much time thinking about that. I was always looking at the next one. From young, even playing junior tournaments. Let's say I was 14 years old. I was playing an age group up. I was playing under 17s. Even though I was losing a lot. It didn't matter that much to me because I was always trying to be a better squash player rather than chasing the trophies back
Yeah,
then.
that's
And
great.
then when it mattered, then um, playing against guys that were the same age, I felt a lot more confident because I've been competing against guys that are much older than me.
Mm.
And I think a lot of players nowadays sometimes they can get too narrow-minded or just too focused about just winning as many tournaments as possible. Obviously, it's good to win tournaments. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but if you feel like you're not improving as much, or if you feel like you want to improve more at a quicker pace, the best thing is to compete against guys that are better than you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I think we've been working together for about, well, it's coming up to a year now, is it? Something like that.
Yeah,
I lost
pretty much.
track
Yeah,
of time over the last period,
yeah,
but um, and that's certainly something that struck me about you from the start, is your priority and thirst for learning. Um, as you say, potentially over chasing titles and
yeah,
rankings. Obviously you want those things, but um, yeah, it's just such a huge thing, that attitude to really pursue
mm,
that, and really makes a massive difference. So yeah, that's a great piece of
yeah.
advice for all young players, all players in general, actually. So yeah, you obviously achieved that World Junior title, and then just briefly, I mean, how did that feel? I mean, it's the kind of thing, obviously, that so many young players will dream of. Few will achieve, but if you can still remember, which I'm sure you can,
Yeah,
what was the
yeah.
sort of emotional experience after winning such an event?
Um, I was just mostly in disbelief at first because I just didn't know what to do at first. Like when I won it, I straight away, my coach back then, Andrew Cross, came in and I just hugged him and I was crying because I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't believe it. Sometimes you have this dream all the time. It's like a dream,
Mm.
and it's it's tough because every round is so tough at that stage. So
Yeah,
every time you feel like, oh, luckily I got through that round. I remember in the semifinals as well. I think the first 3 games was a tiebreak, and I managed to get through that in 4, which was I was kind of relieved about that.
sure.
And then going into the finals, I knew that my opponent just played, I think, 3 back-to-back 5-setters. I knew he was quite tired. The back of my mind, I was quite confident because I've always done well against him. But at the same time at that stage, I think we played at 9 o'clock at night as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why it's so late.
Yeah.
I just spent the whole day. I was just trying to nap, but even then I was struggling because I was just thinking about the moment. Sometimes just probably overthinking it a little bit too much.
Sure.
But when I really did win the last point, I was just in disbelief for quite a while.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Well, like you say, it's a dream, and then when it comes true, it's probably remains a dream for a while. And but I'm sure, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's great. And then from there into your senior career, as you said, you already played some PSAs
Yeah.
previous to kind of exiting the juniors and becoming a 19-year-old. So you already had some kind of transition, but how was your your kind of physical transition into literally like, right, the juniors is over. I'm now, full-time PSA. This is it. I'm in with the big guys. Um, how did you find that process, that the sort of early stages of that process?
I'm sure all professional players know, but it's tough. It doesn't matter where you start.
Mm.
I started straight after juniors. I'm sure even someone who starts later, it's the same. Just climbing up the first few, the rankings at first, it was really tough. I remember being away for a long time because I was doing tournaments and then staying back so that it would make more sense because I'm from Malaysia and most of the tournaments are pretty far away.
Mm.
Remember my last British Junior, I finished that. I stayed back in England for a month. I flew to Toulouse to play my first 10K event, I think, in France. And remember playing Baptiste Masotti then.
Yeah.
Um, I had match balls in that match. In the fourth game, I had match balls and I lost to him.
Yeah.
And I had to stay back for another 7 days.
Yeah.
And it was just brutal because you're going into a tournament with a lot of aspirations of doing well, but sometimes things just doesn't go your way. And then that's one thing that's changed a lot from juniors. From juniors, I would always get to the later stage of tournaments. I get to quarters, semis. I flew there to Toulouse. I lost the first round, and it was done. I was there for a day, and it was done.
Yeah.
So that transition was a big change. I had to pick myself back up because I just couldn't spend so much time just thinking about that loss
No.
and then not doing anything about it.
Mm.
So
Mm.
the first few tournaments, that was kind of the something that I had to adapt to,
Yeah.
something that I had to learn. Because I admit I'm always a bad loser in the sense that I can get really down after a loss.
Yeah.
Um, when I just finished my junior career, the first few months or so, I was feeling down a lot
Yeah.
because I wasn't getting the wins that I wanted. I was losing out early. But then after a while, I just realized I can't. I have to stop doing this.
Mm.
Just gotta learn what happened. Just gotta analyze everything and then get myself back up again.
Mhm.
But definitely, it was really tough the first few months.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, tough times.
Yeah, it really definitely is. I mean, it was 100 years ago for me doing the
Yep.
similar thing, transitioning into juniors into professional. And yeah, I remember thinking, firstly, the physicality being so different that suddenly with juniors, there's a real mix of physicality.
Yep.
Um, even in the sort of earlier rounds, you can, if you're a bit stronger, you can go through people more easily. Whereas in the seniors, like everybody's fit and strong and fast, and that being such a factor. And then also just the kind of loneliness of it in a way, like you're describing there, as
Yeah.
you lose,
Yeah.
and you're maybe not with Team Malaysia or your parents or the kind of teams that you have around you as a
Yeah.
junior. Often with PSA, it's just you,
Yeah.
uh,
It's just myself.
just you in your
Yeah.
hotel trying
Yeah.
to process the loss, the first round loss. And as you say, it's you grow up fast, I suppose, under those circumstances.
Yeah. Luckily, after that, we had a few more tournaments in Malaysia, so I did a little bit less traveling, but I still traveled for whenever I get a chance to enter bigger events. I always try to enter the bigger ones, and then try and fly a little bit further, stay back a little bit more,
Yeah,
meet more people. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years um, is just speaking to people. Everyone's got different ideas about how squash is being played. Um, and all input for me is good in a way that if you can process it to understand what it can help you in your game, then that's fine. It doesn't matter who coming from. It's
Absolutely.
still something. It's still an opportunity for you to learn something. Like I would speak a lot to the pro players back then, and then just maybe sometimes even watching matches with them, and then just thinking about just discussing about the match, like what this guy is doing great, what this guy is probably not doing as well, and that was a big factor for me where I felt like even at 16 I was doing that, and I learned a lot from all those matches over the years.
Mm. That's such great advice. And yeah, for all those coaches, parents, and juniors out there, you just can't underestimate that kind of mindset and attitude as a young player and as a young, pro player, being being hungry to learn and being, so respectful to see opportunities to learn from everyone. And obviously, Mohammed very well now as well. And for me, that's one of the things that sort of shine through with him is his his respect. Like it's just such a strong part of his character. He will take, advice from anyone and won't see that, just because somebody is not a superstar player or a top coach or whatever, that they can't offer something and he might not be able to learn. And that's exactly what you're saying there. And I know it's the same with many other players who have really made it to the top. And often that can be one of the things that defines it, actually. So that's, yeah, fantastic advice. And yeah, and there's no question that's helping you on the path that you're currently on. So you joined pro and you've had a pretty fast um, trajectory, really, from sort of starting the PSA tour. As you say, everybody kind of joins in the 400-500s depending on the size of the tour, and then
Yeah.
it's a long old climb to get up to that top level. But you've gone up pretty fast. What do you think's really helped that sort of trajectory that you've had so far?
I think it's the same with a few of the guys who've done well when they were younger. I obviously didn't do as well, but one thing that I remember was I wasn't scared going on court. That was one of the big things. I wasn't scared of anyone.
Mm.
Every time I start on court, I knew it was an opportunity to get good win, get my breakthrough, and I didn't really get my breakthrough up until I think it was the World Champs in Egypt in 2016. Actually, that was the year that I won World Juniors as well. So I've had a pretty good phase. I won World Juniors and then qualified for the World Open as well
Right.
in the same year. So that was really, I still remember I was there 2 days earlier, just training, hitting, getting used to the court. And they used to, um, they released the draw, the qualifying draw, just paste it on top of on the side of the court. They
Mm.
didn't do it online then. And it was such a big draw as well. They had 2 full pages of it. I was just going through and looking for my name, and I was like, man, where is my name? I can't find my name. And then I realized I was way up on top, and I was playing against the number one qualifying seed. I
Oh.
was like, can't get any worse than this
Yeah,
because it's a draw lot. You can get anyone,
sure.
and
Yeah,
it's never you. That's one of the things where you kind of like, oh, playing the first seed.
yeah,
And I remember going in. I was playing against Charles Sharp.
yeah.
Um, 2-1 down, 10-9 match ball down. I don't know why. Charles was serving from the left box, and he hit a loose serve, and I just went for a cross court nick at 10-9 down in the fourth
Mm.
match ball down, and I won the point. It rolled, and then I won the game, and I won the fifth as well.
Yeah.
Um, but then I got a scolding from my coach after that, but I got through that because I wasn't really scared when I went on the first game. I wanted to make a point. I wanted to let him know that it's not going to be easy. Because that's what all the older guys want to do to you when you're young. They just want to try to be physical to you. They just try and get you off court as quick as possible by trying to bully you a little bit on court. And I wanted to make sure that he wasn't gonna get any of that against me. I'm just gonna run and pick up a lot of the balls. I was just gonna play smart against him. I was using my height, using a lot of the height on the ball, um, just try and mix things up a lot for him, make it really hard for him to win points. And then I think it took a toll on him, and it kind of took him surprise in the first, and then overall he couldn't. I think he couldn't sustain it in the fifth.
Mm.
And then the next round, I remember I had a good chance as well. I think I was playing someone in the top 80. I just thought to myself, well, this is a great chance. I remember going up on the bus. He was on the same bus as me, and I was just looking at him on the way to the court. I just could see it in his face because he had so much pressure in his face because he was playing against me. I was 18.
Yeah.
I had nothing to lose, and he probably felt like it was a great opportunity to get into the main draw.
Mm.
I went in without any pressure, just believing in myself, knowing that if I play my best today, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get out with a win, and that's what I did. I won the second round in 3 games, and I made
Great.
first round of
Mm.
the world champs that year. So that was kind of like the first small breakthrough that I had.
Sure. That's great.
Yeah.
And you just said earlier that you've always, well, maybe not always, but at some stage you've developed this ability to not, I mean, not completely eradicate fear, but probably be able to really put that to one side and not let that
Um,
kind of paralyze you in matches. And even though you have been, a successful junior and you have every reason to be confident, that doesn't always mean there are plenty of people that have had the same, but really
yeah.
struggle with fear of winning, fear of losing. Where do you think you've got that from? Is that something you've worked on, or do you think it's something that you've maybe had as part of your upbringing? Yeah, where's that come from?
I think it's a bit of both. Um, it's something that my coach, Pete Jennifer, towards the later stage of my junior and early start of my career, I worked with him quite a lot, and he was just telling me that I've got to make a mark against these guys, just
Mm.
show them what I can do. Even if I'm playing someone that's 50 or 100 ranks above me, just go in and show them I can do something.
Mm.
Try to win a game.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
show them that you can prove something against them.
Mm.
And I think the confidence as well throughout the junior years
Yeah.
was a big factor as well. I wasn't scared of anyone. I knew if I go in and I played well, I had a good chance against anyone on the day itself.
Mm.
So I was I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous a lot of the time.
Mm.
I still had that fear in me before a match. I still get really nervous
Yeah.
50 minutes before a match, but it's about turning that into a positive energy.
Sure.
So when I feel nervous, I know that I'm getting ready. I
Mm.
know my body's telling me that I'm ready. I have some days where I'm about to play a match and I'm not nervous. I'm just kind of really like a really constant state of mind, and I don't do as well because I'm not ready for the match. I'm too passive.
Sure.
So I take the nervousness as a part of the process of going into a match, and it helps me.
Mm.
And I think that works for a lot of things in squash as well. Just taking what you might perceive as a negative, but look at it positively and try to do whatever is best for that feeling
Yeah.
in a way.
That's great. Really like that. Yeah, and also as you're saying with Pete, you're going into these matches with a sort of clear objective, like beyond the tactics. Really, it's an objective of how you're going to be and how it's going to feel to play against you. And like you said, you're not talking about winning or losing. You're talking about, as you say, leaving a mark and
Yeah,
um, being memorable. I suppose for you and for your opponent. So I think that's another great method to sort of combat fear and distraction on various levels,
yeah,
as you say. Just sort of like, this is how I'm going to think, this is how I'm going to
yeah,
be. And also, as you say, also just turn those feelings of fear into positives, like that is your body telling you it's getting excited and getting ready. Excellent. Nice. So then you've pushed up, yeah, really well. I mean, relatively not that long ago, you won the Malaysian Open last September,
yeah.
which was, I'm sure, good for the ranking, but obviously good for the confidence as well, right at the
Yeah.
beginning of the season. Yeah, how was that event, and how's that sort of helped this last 8 to 10 months go?
I think that was a big thing for me, winning Malaysian Open. I think I felt a big relief on my shoulders actually, because
Yeah.
in junior tournaments you go through a single calendar year. I was winning 2 3 events at least a year. I think last year I was doing about probably a year and a half or two, probably a year and a half. I think, yeah, a year or actually 1 year since I last won the title.
Mm.
So that was always at the back of my mind. I was like, oh, I really want to win a title soon.
Mhm.
And but then at that stage, like at 30K, I was seated fourth, and it's really open. Anyone could have won it.
Yeah.
But I knew from the first round itself, like I won pretty convincingly, and I knew I was very focused for it. But in a way, I was really balanced. I wasn't under too much pressure that I had to do well, but at the same time, I was really confident.
Mm.
I think that at the end, that played a big part of me winning that one.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's great. So, all being well, we'll be able to get back on these squash courts as soon as I can. I don't think I'm going to go down the road of when you think that might be or all that, because I'm sure you've thought about it and discussed it with others, and I
Yeah,
don't really think anybody still really knows, from certainly from the tour's point of view.
yeah.
But yeah, when that happens, obviously you've got strong aspirations to get right to the top. What I mean, I know your goals, but what I mean, what are your sort of your dream goals for your career?
Like I said, I think like being a world champion's always been my dream and always been a goal. From world juniors back then and now climbing up world seniors.
Mm.
What are the reasons why I can't do it? I don't know. I can't think of any reasons why I can't do it.
Mm.
Believe that I can do it. It doesn't matter how long it'll take me. It doesn't matter when I'll achieve it. But I believe that one day I will achieve it.
Right.
But at the same time, not jumping the gun and thinking of putting too much pressure with myself. For example, like that day against Mozart, having my balls losing, and then trying to beat myself up too much for it,
Mm.
and just believe that it's a process as well. That on days that you can get wins, you can get losses as well, a lot of losses as well. Well, when I said I had a small breakthrough after reaching the first round of World Open in 2016, it didn't just go uphill. It was a lot of downhill as well.
Mm.
I had a lot of lows. I remember back then when I was struggling a lot. I'm sure I've mentioned it to you, but like just looking at the past World Junior winners, we had Marwan, Muhammad, Diego,
Mm.
and these guys just shot up to top 20, top 10
Yeah.
straight away almost. When they're 22, 23, they're up there. And I was struggling a lot at 20, 21. I was thinking to myself, what am I doing?
Mm.
I'm not going up as fast as they are. I'm still struggling.
Yeah.
But there was a time where Pete Jenner, my coach then, told me as well, just look, look at someone like Paul Cole.
Mm.
He went up to probably 40s, 30s, and then he was probably around that ranking for a while, and then he had a breakthrough. He won Chen Awas from qualifying,
Yeah.
and that kind of struck me, and then just kind of calmed me, and then I thought to myself, well, um, every player's got a different trajectory with their rankings or with their squash, and also a good point is I think something I've learned is that it doesn't matter how good you are as a junior, if you have the dream or if you have the aspirations to do well in squash, then by all means, if you had a not as good of a junior career as someone else, it doesn't mean that you can't be as good on tour, on the professional tour. Because
Mm.
there's a lot of players that have done it.
Mm.
Joe Makin and Paul Cole is a great example.
Yeah.
Fantastic work ethic, and they're doing really well on tour now.
No, it's so true actually, and you're right that that Yusuf Solomon, obviously a close friend of
Yeah,
ours, and part of the guys in Bristol, has had a very similar process to you. British Open junior champion, the same conversation about
yeah,
fellow Egyptians being in the top 10 20 minutes later. Yeah, I think as you say, everybody does have their own path. And yeah, the players you just mentioned, and I mean Nick Matthew would be another one, wouldn't he? That
yeah,
was a good
yeah,
junior, but not a standout junior. I didn't get a world junior title from what I understand, yeah, and then one of the most successful players ever, David Palmer, Thierry
Yeah.
Linku, you know, relatively late developers, but all
Yeah.
world champions. So yeah, it's so true. It's about that, you know, that belief and the desire and the hunger and you know, the just the perseverance to go that extra mile and stick at it, as you say. And I'm sure you will. So
Also, I think like sorry. Also just to believe in the process in the same time and believe in whatever you're trying to achieve. Um, with your coach as well. I think that's a big part of sharing the same aspirations. I think if it's one way, then it's gonna always be very hard. So if it's both on the same page and working towards the same target and the same goal, then I don't see any reason for it not working
sure,
for
yeah,
everyone.
yeah. No, it's absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, but the team vision is just so vital. It has to be a collective, as you say, a collective belief, but really driven by the player. And yeah, that's absolutely crucial. And all these people we've talked about have achieved that, haven't they, with their various coaches and team members? They've got that right. Eventually, it doesn't happen straight away, but and I mean, just in the context of a world number one, I mean, obviously, you know, again, you're close with Mohammed now, especially probably, you know, spent a lot of time with him over the last 12 months or so. What do you think it is about world number ones, world champions, that separates them from those that don't quite make that number?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I wouldn't say I've cracked it because I haven't reached world number one yet, but
Yeah.
um, obviously they're like someone like Mo, just always looking forward to the next step. Like, all right, they were number one right now, but to them, I think like it doesn't really. It obviously it matters to them that they reach world number one, but then they're always looking on to the next thing, improving, still looking at their weaknesses, trying to improve on their strengths, thinking what they can do better, and then obviously looking at their matches and analyzing at the matches as well. What are the other guys trying to do against me, and then trying to learn from that. I think it goes back to what I said earlier as well, always learning. And these guys were number one, even though the best player in the world, they're still learning.
Mm.
They
Absolutely.
won't be they won't feel content with themselves.
Mm.
And I think that is a big part of it, and also the belief as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the guys in the top 10 are always learning, but the belief it's a big thing as well. I
Mm.
think just that one extra step can be so hard.
Yeah.
I can imagine just like I think one of the interviews Mo was saying like everyone trains hard, but not everyone deserves the world number one spot.
Mm.
Something similar to that, and say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No.
it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of belief, and a lot of learning as well.
Mm. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that's really coming through loud and clear, and the way that you're thinking about the game, and yeah, the way that the greats do this and have done this is this learning focused attitude is at the center of everything. And like before we talked today, and before I kind of thought about any of the questions I wanted to ask you, um, you know, this is really what I hoped you would. Well, I know you would, but you know that this would come out of the discussion is that you know, I'm sure it's nice for everyone to listen to your stories and so on, and you know, connect with a great squash player who has such great experiences already, but also just an insight into what it is that helps, you know, people, squash players, do as well as possible. And you know, I think that's something that's easy to overlook and maybe not quite understand deep enough, is the mindset towards a growth focused mindset, essentially towards learning as the priority. And it's exactly that. And it can be tempting and addictive, as you say, to be chasing more results focused, outcome focused behavior. As you say, it doesn't seem that way, but actually the best they don't chase these things. Of course, they have a strong desire for them, but they focus on development under all circumstances, even when they've had their worst losses. As you explained earlier, you had many times where you've been very down and hit really hard with bad losses, and you've found a way to turn that into a positive experience, learn from it, apply it, and move forward. Yeah, hugely important. Well, yeah, thank you so much for those insights, and yeah, a kind of a brief, I suppose, history of your journey so far. And I say so far, you're only 22, and it feels like you're right up there, which is excellent. So yeah, we were saying this the other day, weren't we? Like the lockdown when you're 22 probably doesn't feel quite so scary as when you're a bit later in your career.
Yeah.
You've still got some time.
I think I was mentioning to you that I was like, oh, if only I got that one or two more wins, I'll probably be in the top 25 or something like that. And now I'm stuck at 32 for the next few months. And I was feeling a little bit down about it. But then you mentioned, yeah, like some of the other players at 29 or 30 years old, and they're probably at the peak of their career, can be really tough for them.
Definitely, yeah. It's going to be it's going to be a big challenge for everyone. It'd be interesting to see how it all pans out when the tour starts again. So I think it'd be a great time now for if anybody has some questions for Yao, if you can post them in the comments, that would be great. Anything you want to ask about squash life on tour?
I think also I like to add one thing, Hadrian, that with the top guys, I think like you said, they don't force it and chase it.
Yeah.
That was something that I had to learn the hard way, because at one stage at 2018 Commonwealth Games, when the draw came out, and I saw that I had a good chance in the last 16. I was seeded 9-16, and I wanted to make a point back then because it was a major game. I wanted to really make a point there and try to make at least the quarterfinals.
Sure.
But then I overlooked my first round. I was playing Rex Hendrick.
Mm.
We were probably similar ranks then, and
Yeah.
then it was tough first round. I still felt confident going in,
Yeah.
but I was already overlooking, looking too far in the draw and kind of pushing myself and chasing the quarterfinal spot even before the tournament started. And then the first round, it was packed glass court. It was the first time I've ever had so many people watching, and they were all Aussies as well, because we were playing in Australia against Rex, who just kept running and running and running.
Yeah.
I think I had a match ball as well.
Yeah.
All the matches that I've lost today, so I had match balls. I think I had match ball on the fifth, and I cramped, and I lost that match. I felt so dejected for the next few days.
Yeah.
But after that, I realized it was about trusting the process and believing that if you're playing good squash, you get a win.
Sure.
Don't worry too much about winning, or don't worry about chasing titles, rankings. Just focus on improving your squash first, and then everything will come into place. And I think that's good advice for everyone. Doesn't matter what stage of their career they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Can you see the comments coming through? We've got quite a few questions already here. You can pick.
All right. First one from Will. It's quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a few suddenly. Yeah.
All right. How many hours do I train a week or a day? I'd say probably 4 hours a day, and a week probably probably 20 hours a week. But that's just purely on training, and not including warm-ups, warm-down, physio sessions, analyzing. So probably 25 hours a week work on my squash. I think that we can achieve a lot in a shorter period of time as well, and it's less stressful on the body, but still getting the maximum effect that you want to out of the training.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Training you
what
do?
Training? Been doing a lot of circuit training, mostly bodyweight stuff. Got a fantastic strength and conditioning coach here, and they set up a program Nothing too special. Just high intensity um, interval training, probably 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off, squats, push-ups, lunges, stuff like that. And I've been doing a lot of skipping to just keep my endurance up for a long period of time. An hour of skipping, just going at it.
Wow.
But also at the same time, not overtraining now, which is quite easy for you to do because there's not much else you can do, and you can train yourself, overtrain,
Mm.
and it hurts both physically and mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Uh,
Sam Buckley's a very good young junior from Ireland. Actually, he's one of the people that crossed my mind when we were doing this, because he's hopefully an aspiring top player too. So how do you trade? Do you want to fire for you some of these others?
Sorry?
Do you want to fire through some of these other questions here? We've got one from Ed,
Yeah,
Rosanna.
yeah. How do I plan my tour schedule? Is there a big choice between cost and gain in prize money and ranking points? Um, I would say I'm very fortunate in this area because we're really well funded by the Malaysian government, the top players in Malaysia. So for me, it's always been about playing the biggest event for me. That's the most that you can learn or find myself learning from. It's when I play the biggest events against the top guys, because there's so many matches going on. It's all good matches. It's all high quality. So I always, most of the time, I probably play 5 or 6, probably even more of the World Series, the Platinum events, and also at the same time balancing it out with the tournaments that I want to win. So it's a balance of between learning against the top guys and winning events as well to keep my confidence up throughout the whole season. So probably 6, 7 World Series events, and then 4 or 5 smaller events that I aim to win a year.
Thanks. How'd you go to West? From Liz in South Africa.
Yeah. Malaysian food can be quite different from South African food. What do I do when I play in Western countries month after month? Good question. I think I've been going to Western countries from a very young age, so I tend to stick with what I know my body can cope with. So a lot of times I go there. I know, for example, I know that I have some issues digesting spaghetti or heavy pasta stuff before my match. So I try to avoid having some of those pasta stuff. Try get rice wherever I can. A lot of times it's just about sticking to what you've been doing during your training. So I always tell myself never try something new during a tournament. So I've always stuck to that, and it's been pretty good for me.
Makes sense.
Do I use any supplements before or during after my match? Not a lot of supplements. Probably some energy gels during the match, and some protein shakes as well to help recovery, but not a major thing for me. Not very important. What advice would you give to late starters aspiring to go pro? I think there's no issues for late starters going pro. I think even if you're starting at 12, 13, 14, 15, whenever you're starting, uh, if you if you're determined enough and if you're willing to work hard, willing to learn, I think can do well. I believe like Joe wasn't that good of a junior, and now he's knocking on the top 10 doors. And just having a good work ethic, good attitude about it, I'm sure you can go far in your career. What do I think I should turn pro? I think 16 like myself or 17 would be a good age to go pro. But also at the same time, I think it differs from people to people. I've seen some of players just feel so, they just burn out by it. I think in a way that they started so young and they were just done with it when they were 19 or 20. But for me, I always had a bigger goal for me, so I didn't mind that too much. But I think from what I've seen in the UK, I think 18, 19 would be a good age. I started at 16, but I think 18, 19 would be a good age,
Mm.
both physically and you're mature enough to actually go for events on your own, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I started playing PSA at 16. How was how was I managing my studies and training during in the early days? Um, we've got a sports school in Malaysia. I'm sure that'll be interesting for everyone. So we've got a fantastic school system in Malaysia where got us, they've already set out the time for us, both between academics and training. So we were all in a full boarding school at the age of 13, and started training at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we would finish about half 8 or quarter to 9, and then we would go to classes at half 9 up until half 2, and then we had our second session of the day at 3 o'clock to 5. So that's our second session, and then we have another additional class from half 8 to 10 o'clock at night, and that was from Monday to Friday, from 13 to 17, and that was how I managed. We had a great system, but I think at 17, I was away for about 6 months, and just doing a lot of studies on my own as well,
Mm.
and managed pretty well, I would say. Um, I'd say there's a lot of time in between training sessions, and you can always just keep up on schoolwork easily, and that I never found that an issue.
Sure, yeah. Well, all being well, if the university's back open in September,
Yeah,
you'll be studying
hopefully.
in Bristol and carrying your books with you to tournaments. So you'll be putting that to the test.
Yeah. How do I book my flights to tournaments not knowing what day you will be done? A good one. This was a big thing that Pete January instilled in me. Um, I've seen a lot of players book probably 2 days. Most players would probably try to get there 2 days before and get at least 2 sessions on the club that we were going to play at. And then I've known a lot of players that just book the next day out. So let's say I'm seeded fifth, and I'm seeded to lose in the quarterfinals. So I book the day after the quarterfinals. But Pete Jenner told me I used to do that as well because I didn't want to stay back for too long. But Pete was like, "Look, we're going for an event. You're gonna target yourself at winning that. So why are you booking the next day after the quarterfinals? Basically, you're backing yourself to lose the quarterfinals. So nowadays, I just book 2 or 3 days before the tournament, and then I'll book up until final or after the final, and then depends on how I do, and then I can just change my flight."
Mm. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's a great point. Great point, because there's already a bit of a big
Yeah,
psychological element. I can remember the same thing, thinking, "What am I
yeah,
booking the next day?"
yeah,
It's like you say, but if I do lose, I hope I've got that flight ready. But like you say, you can change it, and
yeah.
that's really
Can
important.
it plays a lot on your mind actually. 'Cause I
Yeah.
remember I was playing in Pakistan in the quarterfinals against Ahid. It's like, it's gonna be a close match. Feel like I've got a good chance, but I'm sick and tired of this place. I've been traveling for a few months now. I just want to get back home.
Mm.
And then when I was playing, it was kind of on the back of my mind all the time. And then I just felt really silly after the match. I just realized, what am I thinking? I should just focus 100% on squash.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Who was my inspiration growing up, and what made you decide to go pro? I
Nice.
think there's two. I think coming from Malaysia, Nicole David would be a big one, and Ong Beng Hee as well would be one, because he was the first one to actually make a mark on the tour as a Malaysian in the men's department. Actually, he stopped going to school when I think he was 15 or 16 and left for UK, and he was based there full time. And then I remember at 13 years old, I was telling my dad, if I win the British Juniors under 13, I'm gonna stop school and I'm gonna go full time. And he was telling me, no chance you're going to do that. And then 2 years later, when I was under 15s, I told him the same thing again.
Yeah.
He said no. And then I said, okay, after 17s, definitely. So I think from like a young age, I knew I was always going to go pro. And it's just looking at all the guys who've made it, and I really felt inspired by them.
Yeah.
I was quite narrow-minded in that sense that it was always about going pro.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, narrow-minded or tunnel vision, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
tunnel vision.
Good
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Yeah.
Will I play for UE in Bucks League? Um, a bit too far away now. I'm not sure, but we shall see when the time comes. I don't even know if I'll be in the UK by then.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's see what happens. Do I usually schedule a rest day every week? Yeah. Um, I normally take Wednesday as a half day, not a full rest day, but more of a active recovery session. So it's still kind of a good thing, like half an hour of jogging, half an hour of skipping, just something, or even half an hour to an hour of solo, just being active as well. Just kind of get all the lactic acid away from your legs or your body, and it's great for the mind. I think for me, anyways, it would be too tough to go 5 days back to back, just full on training. It would be too much for my body and my mind. So I normally schedule a rest day midweek. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do a lot of yoga for mobility work, and I believe Hadrian's been trying to get me to do some Pilates as well. I haven't had a chance yet.
We'll get there one day. One day. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Well, I think that's a great place to kind of round things up there. Thanks. Well, thank you everyone for joining us and for your questions. I hope you all enjoyed that. I'll upload this video. It's recorded here. I'll upload this as long as Yow's okay with it to our Vimeo page, and you can watch it back because there's so much to learn from today's discussion. And thank you again, Yow, for your time.
Thank you everyone.
Appreciated. Yeah, I can't wait to get back and get involved, but we'll have to cope with this for a while, and yeah, we'll look forward to talking soon, and then hopefully soonish back on the courts. But, yeah. Okay, I'll just unmute you guys, and then you can kind of shout out your thanks to Yow for today's Q&A, and yeah, thank you again for coming.
Yow.
Wow.
Thank you.
Cheers for that. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Hope it wasn't too boring.
You're not. You're much more interesting than Mo. Right. Thanks a lot, Yow.
Really good, isn't it?
No worries. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Yow. Thank you, Hadrian.
welcome.
Thank you, Dunlop.
Thank you,
Guys.
See you.
Really good.